Ah, smello, you flower children. Oh, it smells like rain out there, like wet worms. Whoever got that? God came up with this idea that when the world is raining, it will smell like wet worms. I'll bet it was time bandits that were in that part of the design department. What do you think? Yeah, so did I. I designed a tree. It was 800 feet tall and it smelled awful. I'll bet you did. So anyway, speaking of large things, other than Eshkalar's ego, today I'm going to talk about giants. That's right. This is an episode of Missing Persons by your old buddy Eshkalar, the world's greatest Canadian wizard. Yeah. And when the New World Order takes over, I'll be one world Eshkalar. But I'll still have a soft spot in my heart for Canada. Yeah, because I fell on something. Oh, no, just kidding. So anyway, I want to talk about giants today. Now, there are probably 3 different vectors from which legends and ideas and cultural memes of giantism occur. We'll take the easy one first. In the world, there is a professional sports-themed entertainer named Paul White. If you're an older guy, you might have known him as The Big Show. Oh, it's The Big Show. And Jimmy Hart made a lot of money. He should have, at least. He wrote a lot of those theme songs, the ones that aren't copied from other people's work. So anyway, Paul's a big man. I mean, he's spitting distance is 7 feet tall. And, 400 pounds maybe. That's a big guy. Compare that to me, right? Whoa, Paul would be, a lot taller than me. He'd be taller than Eshkalar with the hat, if the hat had a you-know-what on. That's right. So, Cheech Wizard, I win. Anyway, Paul's a big guy. And if you weren't a big guy, say you were like 5'6", this is in Western measurement units. You people don't know standard. I'm sorry. I know metric. You could learn standard. And then the one big happy family wouldn't matter what size and shape because all the wrenches would work. But no, people want to fight to be insular, and that's how you get tribalism. And that's why people start talking about races if it's something meaningful, which it's not, because we only have one race, the human race. We're all interbreedable, just like dogs, except we're a little less careful about who and when and why. I'm kidding. I'm celibate. I think that means what I think. I think it means that. I think celibate is still okay if it's people turning you down, right? Okay, so anyway, like Gandhi. Just kidding. Oh, just kidding, all of India. Oh, don't make them mad at you, but that's a good example. You take your average Indian male, say in the south of India, right? He's probably about 5'6". He's probably about 125 pounds. He looks really pretty good, especially compared to me, because I'm getting old and fat. And compare him, right? 5'6", right? 5'6", to Paul White. Ooh, over 6'6", more like 7, more like 1.5 feet taller than this guy. And this guy's about 125 pounds. And Paul, the Big Show, is a little bigger than that. He's about 400 pounds. So he literally weighs more than 3 times what this guy weighs. And he's literally more than 20% taller, wider, longer reach, right? Okay, so you can see where the idea of a giant race of men could come from, right? Just from the human race. You have insular breeding groups. They're called tribes, right? And these insular breeding groups, some of them select for whatever reason. I can't tell you why genetics selects for certain things, because that doesn't make sense. And when scientists say, oh yes, they definitely selected that so that they're lying. They know it's just a crapshoot and nobody knows what's going to happen. And no genetic advantage is selected forever. Yeah. That's all a bunch of hype. So anyway, oh wait. How do robin females choose their male? By their superior lifespan? That they will give them harder eggs that are more resistant to predators? That they know a certain call that will drive away the jays that are going to eat their babies and replace them with their own? No, she goes for the robin over here. It's got the big red chest and a nice dance. if you don't get that. Okay, so back to giants. One vector of describing giants is the idea that they're really big people, and most of us aren't that big. And so it's pretty easy to say, if you say you were the Israelites, and you're about the size of those, generally, I don't mean all of you, but generally the size of King David, who's about the size of your standard southern Indian man or an Indonesian, right? Like I said, 5'6", 125 pounds. That's a good human size. And you come up against a race of people that some of the families in that, well, not race, I'm sorry, a tribe of people, an interbred group, right? A selective interbred group. And in them, there are some families that gave rise to some genetics, so you get guys like Paul White. Would you then describe them as giants? I think so. I'm going out on a limb here, folks. Yeah. That does not describe my next concept, which is the idea of the Nephilim. And the Nephilim is not only a Hebrew idea, it is a generic idea to which the Hebrew have put a term, and it works very well for me. So I'm going to use it more generally than in specific Jewish mythology. All right. So the Nephilim, this is your next vector for giantism, are variously described, of course, but they seem to be, Enoch, I think, is sort of convinced that angels came from heaven after an argument with God. Everybody has an idea, you know, and that some of them went native and they started, you know, like making whoopee with the human women, because I think everybody knows human women are the hottest women anywhere, right? Yeah. I'd be doing that with them too if I could. Like I said, they turned me down, so I'm what you call celibate. But still, you get the idea. Now, these angels, who were apparently able to take human form, they seem to in Scripture, right? You know, and not just in Jewish Scripture, but also in the Scripture of other areas. You know, they show you in the bas-reliefs that there are creatures that look like lions with human heads with those really nice crimped beards and wings behind them. Okay, Shidu. Okay, but in general, a lot of their statuary show humanoid or human-like creatures as the powers from above. Sometimes with animal heads, and there's got to be, oh, I don't know what, somebody was doing something really weird in the barnyard late at night, I think, and that's where these ideas come from. But I'm only one man's opinion, even if it is Eshkalar's. I mean, really, no. Come on now. My opinion is more important than Bob Newhart's. Come on now. So anyway, so there's your second idea, is that the giants are a type of creature that are spawned by forces beyond our comprehension, the titans, the angels with human women, these things, these monstrous, sometimes inhuman-looking creatures. I think Ezekiel describes it as something, what is it, roughly 50 feet tall, like the attack of the 50-foot woman. You know, she was probably Nephilim. So, and the idea being, how that works is not my business. Were there giant creatures growing 50-foot people and they would get up and walk away, or, you know, were the human women exploding in childbirth? What was going on there? He's pretty vague on the details. Makes me wonder if he was really there. No offense. That's why we call that pseudepigrapha. It is stuff that is accepted for its contributions to culture without being accepted as to the authenticity of its origin. I would say that the Jews were just as complex and convoluted as we are today, back then. Because did you hear that? That's the most lovely sophistry. I want to be able to think that well, to have that seamless sophistry that leads me wherever I want to go. I'm complimenting it. So anyway, so the idea, of course, that specifically Jewish tradition is that the angels that fought with God were thrown out of heaven, cast down, some I guess into hell, some to the earth, and they started making whoopee with human women. Why wouldn't you, right? I don't know how heaven is, and I don't know how hell is. Well, I've been in hell a few times, but still, you get the idea. I don't really know what the hellish discourse is. I don't know what the heavenly discourse is, but I'm willing to guarantee you that the drugs are better here. All right, so back to what I was talking about, the giants. Well, if you go to the places where these stories of the Nephilim arise, you will find bones in the earth, giant disarticulated spines of what were, we think, called, well, we call sauropods, giant long-necked and long-tailed dinosaurs. I think in the public imagination we might call them brontosaurs, or, right, Diplodocus, or Brachiosaurus, or Titanotitlon, yeah? So, right, Argentinosaurus. Giant, long neck, long, okay. When you find them in the rock, often they are what's called disarticulated. So you only find a segment of spine, no head, maybe not even the end of the tail, no legs, no hip bones, just this long spine of a monster that was probably 120, 130 feet long. And you think, just that long spine. You think, wow, what the hell was that from? Something really tall, really big, right? Well, okay, then you get these ideas. Up in Viking land, Finland, Norway, Sweden, right? Up in the places where the Vikings came from. Another insular inbreeding group. That's why you have such light skin and such light colored hair and eyes that are prominent rather than statistically insignificant in the peoples. So that's inbreeding. No other reason. And inbreeding isn't healthy, so if you think that inbreeding is a good thing, you're probably mistaken. You're going to have to read up more on genetics. I'm just asking you to give it a moment and think about it yourself. And then read on it yourself. Don't just accept what somebody's telling you. It's me. Hey, stop that. So anyway, that's the second idea. We find disarticulated bones in the sands of the Middle East, and we see that they could be easily reconstructed in the memories and the imaginations of the peoples of the times, even today, as being the bones of giants. Yes, we still have those myths today. People see bones in the earth and say, oh, we're covering up evidence of giant humans, the Nephilim. They say that today. So, yeah, you're on Eshkalar. Secrets of the Universe revealed for free, not even marketing anything. Love me. Don't love my carpet. Love me. And then don't offer me nothing, because love should be pure. Yeah. So anyway, then you could say, well, that's the spine of a human. Or like they do up in the Northland, they could say that's the spine of a great snake. You only find a section of it here and there. But it may be that it's a snake so large that it wraps around the whole world, and when the god Thor tried to pick it up, just get its foot off the ground. Why a snake would have feet, I don't know. But it shook the whole world. Your man Gundir, yeah. Your man Gundir. I'm not sure how close I am, but still you get the idea. The great world snake. Yeah, whose breath kills Thor in the final battle of Ragnarok, which seems to be coming up there soon. You guys that, well, I'm sure you already have your eyes open. So there's your second way that a giant can come about, right? That you see the bones in the earth, and you think, well, that must have been giants. Giant what? I don't know. If you find what's called a bone bed, this is important stuff. A bone bed where there are jumbles of the bones of many, many animals that seem to have been rushed down to a choke point in a drain somewhere. You know, water, spring water, thaw water, washed it all off into a seep somewhere, and you find this giant jumble of bones. Well, you would look at that, and you would look at your priest. You would say, "Okay, we're going to stump you now, bud. Yeah." All this talk about gods and angels mating with humans, and what the hell is this? You got 30 seconds and no lifelines, buddy. And that priest, because the people that spawned him are some pretty canny folks, and got some sharp eyes among them, sharp brains among them, is going to say, there's a monster called Behemoth, or Leviathan, I forget which is which. But it is made of, it has plates on its back, and it has fur on its head, and it has crests and fins and arms and legs and every kind of quality that every animal has. Look, they're right here in this bone bed. And it was so terrible that only God could slay it. This is evidence that the God I'm talking about to you exists. Who else could slay this terrible monster? Yeah, that's pretty damn entertaining. You get to live another day, priest. Go back to the women. Everything I've said there is human, and so it's likely that it took place. But nothing in the other traditions seems very human and is unlikely to have taken place. We misinterpret things because we only have limited information available. We do our best. Like today, science knows everything about the universe except about 90%. God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we're human. I'm sorry. I hope you intended this. So, the important thing here is to remember that there are two vectors so far for where giants, the legends of giants, the idea, the cultural memes of giantism could come from. One is they're legitimate people. Hey, my tribe has taller people than yours, and your tribe's going, whoa, you're giants. Your tribe has taller people than mine. We're going, oh, you have giants. The second one is, look at these bones in the ground. There must have been giants. And how were they embedded in the ground? There must have been a terrible war. What else could do that? I mean, wait, that's not mud. That's ow, that's stone. Oh, there was a monster called the Medusa, and its gaze would turn things to... There it is, right there. Let those who have ears hear. Let those who have eyes look at prettier people than your old pal Eshkalar. But at least catch the ideas, will you? So now there's a third vector for where these ideas of a giant might enter the public narrative. In this case, the oral tradition of a people that did not have an alphabet. In Malaysia, I'm not going to specify national boundaries, and I apologize to anyone who was offended by me typifying a whole peninsula as Malaysia. There are caves in which there are teeth, and these teeth are of a huge hominid ape. In other words, a humanoid kind of ape. You know, two big arms and legs, and if it made a muscle, it would look like it was making a muscle. Feeds its babies with nipples. Imagine the Hooters on an 11-foot tall ape. Wow, a rewrite porno. Yeah. So anyway, these ape teeth come from a creature that paleontology refers to as Gigantopithecus. Why it begins with a G instead of a J? You have to blame the Romans on the world's worst language for translating Greek. If we're going to use taxonomy in Greek, let's bring the Greek alphabet over, shall we please? Yeah, they have perfectly good kappa, they have perfectly good ch, and that's all we need. So we don't say chutzpah, we say chutzpah. Yeah, it's a thing. And we don't say Hades, we say Hades. Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah. And we say Uranus instead of whatever it is you're talking about, you perv. Yeah, you thought it was my fault. No. My mind's on a higher plane. I'm bringing you a higher love, baby. So here it goes. The third way is you find these giant crowns of humanoid ape teeth in these caves in Burma and Thailand. I don't want to mention the names, I'm sorry, in the Malaysian Peninsula. And here's where a human molar cap would be about like this, and these guys are about like that, and we say, oh, holy moly, holy molar. Yeah, it's a molar volume. Bucky would love that. It's a molar volume. So they figure, well, that comes from an ape that must have been enormous. Enormous compared to the human molar and the other molars of the great apes. This creature must have been big enough to be considered a giant. Yeah, they're saying that this Gigantopithecus stood 9 feet tall. Yeah, like a Kodiak bear, but it's an ape. Whoa, and we hope it was fairly, herbivorous. I don't care. I'm stunned. And it's your own pal Eshkalar. So, this ape lived during a time when there were also tiny little humans underfoot in this big lush jungle, right? The climate was changing, but it was still beautiful. Late Pleistocene. up to about 13,000, 12,000 years ago. These guys are still like endemic in this region. And so, these tiny little people figure this is Homo florensis, right? Florensis, fricacesis, I don't know, watch Popeye. But about this tall, average male. Now, an average male pygmy is about this tall, right? And they are also an insular inbred group. So there are no other species of man. They're humans, and we're all interbreedable, but we have inbred groups like the Vikings and like the pygmies. And then you have an average Thai or Malayan, about like this, right? 125 pounds. But then you have this 9'8". You have this Homo florensis. It's not about this tall. So you're a man, right? 125 pounds, 5'6". And there's these teeny little people in the forest. The wee people. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they had Wi-Fi in those days. But still, the idea, man. And then there were these fantastically huge superpower apes. When I say superpower, an ape that weighs about a third what one of those would weigh. Say an orangutan, right? Orang meaning man, and utan meaning forest. So it's a forest man. There are other orangs in their mythological tradition, by the way, including giants. Da 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 da, Batman. See, this is Eshkalar. You can't have just one area of expertise. You must embrace them all in order to understand all the resonances and start to see truth instead of just coming up against walls all the time. Yeah. Ask me about radioactivity in the age of the world later, and I'll tell you about fossils and how the dating might be a little askew. Yeah, that's a thing. So anyway, so here's your third vector. They find these giant molar teeth, just the crowns, the enamel crowns, because, here's a story, porcupines take large bones into their dens and gnaw them to keep their teeth short and sharp, because otherwise they keep growing until they pierce their skulls. This is a real thing. I don't have to exhort this to you. It's a real thing. They're rodents. They must gnaw. They have to, or they'll pierce themselves with their own gnawing teeth. So, the bones they were using in those days were the bones of these giant apes, Gigantopithecus. And so, you'll find these crowns in these caves with porcupine remnants, porcupine poo, porcupine meal remnants, porcupine dead young, porcupine bones. And they're like, oh my gosh, there used to be a race of giant apes. Now they found, I think, what is it, 1,200, 1,800 of these teeth, these caps. The reason they find the enamel caps is because the porcupines can't use them. They can't gnaw them away. So they leave them. And that's the only reason we know about this, the biggest ape, the biggest hominid that ever lived. A creature that literally enfleshes the word giant. And we only know about it because porcupines couldn't chew their tops of their teeth on. And people think that science has, like, a logical progression to it. There is no logic. There's only chaos. Love me. I'm your chaos. I'm your link to chaos. It's hard to find one. And when I'm gone, you don't have one except for events. And you don't want to be an event horizon if you can help it. Okay, so those are the three vectors of giantism. One is it's in the folklore because there were real giants in the forest with your ancestors. And there were real little people in the forest with your ancestors. The second is, well, your tribe was pretty short, but their tribe was pretty tall, and yeah, everybody got it, right? Right? And the third one is, look at these bones in the earth. These must have been people. Here's my arm bone, and there's that arm bone. Oh, how big, it must have been 50 feet tall. And then when it comes to the wildest monsters, like I said, behemoth or leviathan, I think it's behemoth, right? That is the mishmash of all the different types. And you can't figure out what kind of animal it was from the descriptions they give. That sage was looking at a bone bed, saying, oh gosh, horse, antelope, camel, saber-toothed tiger, giant ape, I don't know, whatever this is, Allosaurus. I'm kidding, you scientists. Yeah, you pick up your torches, but you don't know how to light them without a lighter. Just kidding. So anyway, try it this way sometimes. You'll love yourself. Yeah, you'll wake up at night going, no, I wouldn't want to be primitive. So those are your three vectors. Your vectors are your tribe has bigger men or his tribe has bigger men. And so we carry forth the idea of giants and little people, depending on which tribe is which. And then we have the idea that there are bones in the earth. And those bones must have belonged to people so much bigger than us. Giants. And the monsters they fought. And where did they come from, Krishna? Well, I do a lot of things. Right? Yeah. And then the final idea is that there were real giants. Hey, look at them right here in the forest. Go. Oh, give me bamboo. You know. Wow. So there's Eshkalar on giants. Yes, yes, yes. There were giants. There are three different ways to describe what a giant is. Right? Norse tradition, the Jotun. Right? Jewish tradition, Ezekiel. Enoch, sorry. And paleontological tradition, the bones in caves secreted there by porcupines 8,000 to 12,000 years ago. Wow! And that's what it takes to be a giant in this world. This is Eshkalar. If you found a different giant, I'd like to see it. Yeah, because I need my car towed, and he could probably pull them off for me pretty cheap.